Elbaf is one of the most highly anticipated arcs in the series. It's been nearly a quarter of a century since the Land of the Giants was first mentioned all the way back at Little Garden. Of course, since then, a lot has changed in the story of One Piece. Oda has expanded what was thought to be a fun little pirate adventure into a grand epic on the scale of some of literature's best works. So considering that, it's likely the fan expectations of what a potential Elbaf arc would be has also evolved over time. I know in my case that is definitely true. When I first pictured the Straws visiting the fabled land, I was expecting something fairly low stakes and lighthearted, in the vein of honestly a Little Garden or even a Long Ring Longland. Never would I have thought that our visits would be preceded by the Straws fighting off literal demons who are in possession of a weapon capable of sinking the entire world into the ocean. Now, when the thought of Elbaf does come to mind, I think of some of the most important plot points in the series. The Void Century, Joy Boy, Shanks, Blackbeard, Cross Guild, the Revolutionaries. It almost feels like Elbaf is set to be just a backdrop for the continuation of the final saga. While that can be exciting, I also don't want to neglect all the potential fun we could have just getting to live in Elbaf. So, I wanted to go through my personal hopes and expectations for what this next arc could bring. I'm going to give my top 6 predictions, going in a pattern of what I call Elbaf exclusives, as in storylines that could only make sense if we're at Elbaf and not an island like Wano or Water 7, and Elbaf non-exclusives, referring to plot points that could technically happen at any island, but given where the story looks to be headed, I'd say are likely to take place at Elbaf. The first Elbaf exclusive is likely the first item on anyone's Elbaf bingo card, and that is some damn character development for Usopp. Now I'd be lying if I said Usopp was the most neglected Straw post-time skip. I think pretty much anyone not named Luffy has been lacking significant focus, with the exception being Sanji, who of course got some nice character moments at Whole Cake Island. While I would love if Elbaf took us back to the days of Arlong Park, Alabasta, and Water 7, where it felt like the entire crew was standing shoulder to shoulder, equally motivated to take down the big bad, I think I'll have to temper my expectations and settle for a Sanji at Whole Cake Island sort of deal for God Usopp. The first plotline I could see for Usopp is him finally meeting his father, Yasopp. It's no coincidence that Oda made one of Shanks' top officers the father of one of Luffy's crewmates. I'd have to imagine he's been planning some grand reunion between the two for a long time. And the fact that we now know Shanks has an established friendship with the Giants makes this father-son bonding moment at Elbaf seem all the more likely. My only apprehension when it comes to a Yasopp plotline comes with how there's been virtually no references made to this familial connection. Basically, if you only ever read the manga, the only references you have to Usopp and Yasopp being related is from Serum Village. Then you have to wait all the way until the Wano epilogue, where Yasopp states that he's not ready to meet Usopp yet, which isn't even enough to clue someone in on what their relationship is. If you're not a mega One Piece fan who engages with the community on social media or watches videos like this one, you probably all but forgot that Usopp's dad is an important character, and you'd have every reason to. Oda has not made an effort to have Usopp remind the audience of what is likely going to be an important aspect of his character. Oda has revealed that he planned to reference Yasopp more often in past arcs, most notably through a cut storyline where Usopp meets a former rival of his father's at Logtown, and through a conversation with Garp at Water 7. The Logtown storyline was actually adapted in the anime, but has never been referenced in the manga. Why Oda ended up removing these scenes is beyond me. I'd like to think it's not an indication that he doesn't care about expanding on this plotline anymore, but only time will tell. Looking past his father, I think Usopp is bound to have some really great individual character moments at Elbaf. His goal since the start of the series has always been to become a brave warrior of the seas, and I think we'll finally see him make some major headway in accomplishing that goal during this arc. He likely won't fully accomplish that goal, as I think it'd be weird if Usopp completes his entire character arc before the conclusion of the series. And I'm also a firm believer in the theory that for him to become a brave warrior, Usopp will have to sacrifice himself. I'm just not ready to say goodbye to our favorite long-nosed crewmate yet. If there's one specific character moment I'd like to get for Usopp, one thing that he has been missing post-time skip that most every other Straw Hat has gotten is a serious one-on-one battle. I was incredibly disappointed when Usopp went through the entire Onigashima raid without an actual fight, especially when all the other Straw Hats that were absent during Whole Cake Island got full one-on-one battles. It's been over 300 chapters since Usopp has had an actual fight, and that's only if you count Sugar as an opponent. If not, you'd have to go back to Fishman Island, where most everyone fought jobbers. The last genuinely difficult battle that Usopp has had was against Perona at Thriller Bark. That is absolutely criminal for one of the original members of the crew. This needs to change at Elbaf. There's a popular theory that the Straw Hats and Red Hair Pirates will compete in a Davy Back fight. If that happens, then I could see Usopp having a sniping match against his dad. But I would personally like it if Usopp was in a fight that actually put his life on the line, against someone who poses a genuine threat to him and the crew. Now, who could I be talking about? Well, that gets into my second expectation for the arc. My first Elbaf non-exclusive is Sakazuki leading the Marines to battle the Straw Hats. It feels like ever since Sakazuki became Fleet Admiral, he's been this powder keg just waiting to explode. Being talked down to by the Five Elders during the Dressrosa arc, and the Celestial Dragons after letting Kuma escape Marijoa has definitely left him feeling a certain way about his position as their lapdog. I think this is all a very deliberate setup to get readers desperately anticipating the moment he says screw it and decides to take action without approval from the higher-ups. And I think after the Egghead incident concludes, that'll be the perfect excuse for Akainu to finally step up. Jinbei said all the way back at Fishman Island that Marine HQ has become much more powerful under Sakazuki's rule, and I'd like to finally see what makes them so threatening. If we get to see the Marines hunt Luffy and hell the other three emperors at Elbaf, with Sakazuki being the main antagonist, that would be really fun. I also think it would work well thematically with the island, as the giant's prideful nature and Sakazuki's twisted sense of justice could create a fun dichotomy. But which Marine officers will Sakazuki bring on this mission? Well, I think Ryokugyu is a given, as he's an ardent supporter of the Fleet Admiral. I could also see John Giant coming as an advisor, as he's the first giant to enlist in the Marines, so there could be some interesting interactions between him and the locals. Smoker and Tashigi could also appear for the sake of adding some tension, as they definitely don't lean on the side of absolute justice, but also aren't members of the more morally righteous Sword. But one last addition I'd like to include, and this would be the character I'd like to see Usopp fight, is Vice Admiral Onigumo. You might not remember Onigumo as he hasn't actually made an appearance post-time skip, but he was one of the 5 Vice Admirals dispatched for the Buster Call at Enies Lobby, where he ordered one of the warships to be destroyed on the off chance he could kill Luffy in the explosion. He also was responsible for transferring Ace from Impel Down to Marineford, and finally at Marineford, he actually managed to slap Seastone cuffs on Marco, severely handicapping him during the war. This character has been clearly shown to follow absolute justice, to the point that I'd call him a mini Sakazuki. I think it'd be a great test of bravery for Usopp if he had to fight one of the cruelest Marines we've ever seen. In conclusion, a Marine Hunt arc just seems like the natural next step for the narrative. Getting into the second Elbaf exclusive, and that is seeing more Supreme Grade weapons. In the most recent SBS, Oda revealed that Fujitori's sword is one of the 12 Supreme Grade blades, one of the 12 most powerful Meito in all of existence. We currently only know of 4 other weapons of the same grade: Mihawk's blade Yoru, Whitebeard's polearm Murakumogiri, Roger's sword Ace, and the Shodai Kitetsu, which is heavily speculated to be held by Venus Juro. I've heard a lot of fans say that they don't believe Oda will reveal the other 7 blades in the short amount of time we have left in the series, and I just don't really get that. For one, there are a handful of swordsmen in the series who are likely going to be some of the toughest swordsmen we've ever seen, like Shanks, Shiryu, and Figureland Garling. So it's only a matter of time before some, if not all of them, are revealed to have Supreme Grade weapons. And most importantly, we are literally going to an island based on Norse mythology, a mythos known for featuring characters with legendary weapons. I really hope that once we get to the land of proud warriors, we get to see at least 3 or 4 Supreme Grade weapons, and hell, throw in some great grade blades and skillful grade blades for good measure. Really lean into the idea that we are meeting some of the most badass fighters we've ever seen that lives up to the name Warland. Hell, it's possible that Dory and Brogy are already wielding Supreme Grade weapons, which could explain why they can hold off the 5 Elders. I could also see Prince Loki being in possession of a powerful blade, and if Elbaf has a military, then maybe the military commanders have their own blades. The possibilities are endless, and I can't imagine Oda would miss out on such a great opportunity to explore this major aspect of Norse mythology. The second Elbaf non-exclusive expectation I have is Cross-Guild making a move. I absolutely love that Cross-Guild is even a thing, as it completely subverted my expectations for the story going forward following the Wano arc. While I wish Buggy and Mihawk had received more screen time leading up to the Yonko crew's formation, I'm happy with where they are now in the story. I mean, just the idea that Buggy is one of the Yonko is so absurd, but amazing at the same time. With all of that said, I think we're due for a Buggy and Shanks reunion to happen at some point, and Elbaf seems like the perfect place for it. The two emperors were like brothers back on Roger's crew, but have fallen out since then. And with Buggy rallying his crew to find the One Piece, and Shanks and Luffy meeting at Elbaf being all but confirmed, I think it's safe to say that we'll see an attempted heist of the century as Crossguild tries to walk away with 3 of the 4 Poneglyphs. We could even see them participate in a 3-way Davy Back fight, though I doubt Crossguild has enough strong fighters to field for the competition. I mean, after Crocodile and Mihawk, I think you just have Daz Bones, who's likely fairly strong now, but then it's a nosedive to Mr. 3 and Kabaji, Moji, and Alvida. Yeah, I can't really see them winning any battles for the crew. Instead, what they'll likely do is go for the option of just stealing the Poneglyphs instead of playing fair. I'd also love to see Oda delve deeper into Buggy's resentment of Shanks, and if they can ever reconcile. If the Marines also show up at Elbaf, then I think that could also create an interesting dynamic, as of course they would have a bone to pick with the organization that has incentivized hunting their own troops for profit. Imagine how hype it would be if we had 3 Yonko crews and the Marines all going at each other in one arc. I recall Oda wrote a message at Jump Festa 2023, teasing some sort of great battle royale in the final saga. I feel like this meeting of Emperors and Marines alike could set the stage for that epic showdown. The third and final Elbaf exclusive I have is a pretty simple one. Elbaf should be one of the most fantastical islands we've ever seen in the series. Right after the Marineford arc, we were teased on the wondrous locations we could expect to see in the New World. We saw Apu running on air, Yoruj visiting an island that is perpetually being struck by lightning, and Gang Beige seemingly getting abducted by a UFO. This set up a lot of expectations on the amazing locations we could expect to see in the New World. And so far, our journey through the second half of the Grand Line has only partially delivered. Islands like Totland and Zo were absolutely stunning and so much fun to explore. However, the majority of the New World has involved visiting uninspired locations like the incredibly generic, half-hot, half-cold Punk Hazard, or countries like Dressrosa and Wano, which, while being very pretty to look at, especially in Wano's case, which is one of the most gorgeous islands in all of One Piece, they are still just regular countries with none of the supernatural wonders that I was personally hoping for. But nothing can top the disappointment that is the island of Egghead. Such a cool concept, a futuristic city with its own sky island, completely wasted as it just becomes the backdrop for a bunch of battles. There's nothing wrong with having fights, but usually we get to at least explore the various landmarks of an island before the climax begins. While Egghead, as far as we've seen, is just city, sky, and science labs. I really hope that when we visit Elbaf, we get to explore the various villages, towns, and mountains, with each having their own distinct landmarks, like how Alabasta had several iconic locations such as the Royal Palace, Crocodile's Casino, Rain Dinners, and the rundown town of Yuba. Combine that with the creative architecture like the buildings made of sweets at Totland, or the water canals used as roads at Water 7. I feel it is safe to say with how long Oda has been teasing Elbaf that we are in store for some amazing panels that showcase the beauty of the island, so I'm not too worried about this hope of mine not coming true. And now the final Elbaf non-exclusive, and the final item for this video. I'm really hoping that Oda continues his trend established during the Egghead arc of diverting focus to characters outside the current island. Specifically, I think it is essential that during the Elbaf arc, if it doesn't happen at Elbaf itself, we need to follow the Blackbeard pirates and see the fallout from all of the shenanigans they've been involved in. These guys just captured the hero of the Marines, collected 2 of the 4 road poneglyphs, have the means to read the poneglyphs, one of their members can now shapeshift into a Gorosei, and they will soon gain information on the whereabouts of 2 of the ancient weapons. There's absolutely no way that we can just laser focus on the Straw Hat's story post-Egghead without learning what Teach is scheming. It would be cool if Blackbeard and Luffy's stories intersected at Elbaf, but I can't really see why Teach's ambitions would take him to the home of the giants. I guess he could try to go after the other Emperor's poneglyphs, but I think the smarter move is to just go after the ancient weapons to increase your military might. With that said, could we see a Wano revisit arc? Maybe the Blackbeard pirates fight the vassals, Momo and Yamato for access to Pluton. Or they use Garp as a bargaining chip along with their new Gorosei plant to turn Hachinosu into a kingdom under the world government. There are several routes for the crew to take, but I think regardless of what they do, you can bet that Shanks is going to get involved. This might contradict my previous prediction of the Red Hair Pirates mixing it up with Crossguild and the Straw Hats, but we do know that Shanks was leaving the nation before Kid showed up. So it could be a situation where Blackbeard and Shanks fight, Teach escapes, and Shanks returns to Elbaf because the Marines and Yonko crews have invaded. Either way, I think Blackbeard is really going to shake up the One Piece world in a way that no one will see coming. Well, this video was a lot of fun to make. I think after working really hard on the Wano analysis video, I needed to make something more lighthearted and fun to ease the mind. I'm actually fairly new to One Piece. I caught up to the manga during the Egghead arc, so this is my first time getting to anticipate a new arc with the fanbase. I don't know how it typically goes for the fans, but for me the anticipation is really killing me. Let me know in the comments what you want to see in the Elbaf arc. Really excited to hear from everyone. And make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more One Piece content. See ya.